Hi guys, so Keir Starmer, the leader of the opposition, the leader of the Labour Party, has decided to abstain from the vote on the new restrictions to deal with the pandemic. So let's hear what he had to say and I'll come back with a comment.
Cases is coming down as a result of lockdown. The virus is still a significant risk, and in principle we accept that there are going to have to be continued restrictions. Now, it's very important as the opposition that we act in the national interest. We do have serious misgivings about the government scheme, the proposals, but we will not be voting them down tomorrow. We will not be voting against them. That would not be in the national interest, and I think to vote down these schemes would be irresponsible. We will abstain tomorrow, and that will mean that the regulations go through. Although we've got serious misgivings about the scheme, about whether it's strong enough, track, trace and isolate still hasn't been fixed, and across the country there's real concern about the level of economic support that needs to go in for businesses that are going to be impacted most. But notwithstanding those misgivings, we're not going to vote these regulations down. It's important in the public interest that our regulations, and it's better that these regulations, which can be amended, are put in place than there's no regulations, which would be the result if we voted against them. The scheme is not strong enough when you take into account the risks of the Christmas break. In addition to families mixing, you've got students moving around the country, and you've got retail open in the busy period before Christmas. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that test, trace and isolate still isn't working properly, and you absolutely need that if you're going to control the virus, and the government's had months to get that right. And then thirdly, and probably the most important, that the economic package that's needed is not in place for the businesses that need it. And talk to any business across the country, particularly those in Tier 3, and they'll be very loud and clear that yet again they're put in this position of having health restrictions without the economic support that they desperately need to get them through the next few months.
So why is he abstaining and not voting against these restrictions? I think it's because, well, I actually believed that he was going to vote with the government, but I think he's spoken to his backbenchers, he's spoken to the party hierarchy, and they have decided, look, it's better for you to abstain. If you vote with the government, you're going to get blamed for being Boris Johnson's poodle. If you vote against the restrictions, Boris Johnson is going to have a field day and say that you are going back on your word on supporting the government in dealing with this pandemic. Now, I know that Boris Johnson is going to criticize Keir Starmer no matter what he does, but Keir Starmer is giving the Labour Party some breathing space by saying, look, we're not going to vote against these restrictions. We're not happy with these restrictions. If we were truly against them, we would vote against them. If we were truly for them, we would vote with the government. But of course, we're in between. As he said, they don't go far enough. They should be much stricter, but they're better than nothing. It's basically like somebody offers you something to eat. You don't like it, but you eat it anyway because you're hungry. So in the same way that Keir Starmer is saying, look, we're going to abstain. We're not going to vote against these restrictions because we think they're necessary. Now, I had actually believed that he would vote with the government, but I think he has understood that the public are not happy with these tiers. They're not happy with the types of restrictions that are in place. They're not happy with the lockdowns. And there is a sort of fatigue building within the United Kingdom, within England in particular, in respect to these restrictions. People are getting tired and they want it over and done with. And also, I think there's another aspect to this, the problem of this false dawn that Boris Johnson continues to roll out. So he's talking now about a vaccine being released in the spring. We don't know that. Boris Johnson is terrible at keeping promises. And I think Keir Starmer doesn't want to be dragged along to make excuses later on, especially for Boris Johnson. So I think this is probably the politically savvy decision to make. Don't vote against, don't vote with the government, but abstain. But of course, no matter what he does, he will be criticised by Boris Johnson. And I hope that the general public understand the difference between voting against something and abstaining. Let me know in the comments, in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.